Welcome back, everybody. Satisfactionist Live. I am your host, Ben Olmos, and we are here once again talking about the topics and the things that will just change and shape our world. And today we are here with Morris Ham. Is it Dr. Morris Ham, or we're still working on that, Morris?
We're officially it is, but nobody calls a lawyer doctor. We're glad when they don't make us SOBs, but I am working on another doctorate, so it will be legitimate at that point to be called a doctor.
All right. Yeah, that's true. It's a JD, which is, it's a doctorate. But yes, this is the other kind of academic advancement in that. So welcome back, everybody. And if you are joining us live, I do encourage you guys, if you have any comments as we're going through our topic tonight, you want to make a comment, I can serve it up in our live feed here. So that would be awesome. If you have anything to say, you want to chime in, please do. Tonight, I am actually still working on my Lavelli Pasamante. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But tonight's topic is about universal basic income and artificial intelligence. And the reason that I wanted to get into this is because we are in a point in our world where we kind of reject this idea of universal basic income. Let me be a little bit more specific about that. There are definitely people who reject the idea of universal basic income. There are others who are proponents of it. The reason why this is becoming a more necessary topic, I believe, is because we are in this environment where artificial intelligence is getting to the point where we're no longer supplanting just, blue collar or lower skilled labor with machinery. We are also now putting aside more knowledge worker jobs and white collar jobs with artificial intelligence as well. And so as this new technology continues to thrive and grow, how is this going to affect and impact the things that we do? How is it going to put people out of work? What are we going to do with more people in the world and less work to do? So all of those things are why we come to this topic. And Morris, who is a chair of the Masters of Business program at Holy Names University, is a wonderful resource of knowledge. And we were talking before we got started here on some of the work that he has been doing, the research he's been doing around artificial intelligence in education. So Morris, let's go ahead and get into it from that standpoint. So we were talking about a little bit about it before we got started, but share with me a little bit about what you've been exploring related to AI and education.
Well, as I mentioned, I'm working on a Doctor of Business Administration, and my original research for a dissertation topic took me to using AI to conduct a class, to structure the class in a way that the students proceeded at the best pace for them, in the best modality for them. We know that students learn verbally, they learn audibly, they learn through a mixture of the two. So we need to present the material in those ways. But they also learn at different rates. And what's wrong to me, at least with our system now, is that we force everybody into the same. You're going to learn this in week 1 and this in week 2 and this in week 3, without any regard to whether they can master the materials in 1 week, or can they do it in 2 days? Do they need 10 days? We don't adjust for that. If we were able to tailor each student's progress through the material to how fast they learn, we can then, give the more advanced students things to challenge them, things to keep them interested in the material and to expand their understanding of the material. We can offer them an education geared to what they can do. And AI, by recognizing the types and recognizing how well students are learning and then adjusting for what they're doing, would allow us to do that. And there's work being done in that area in terms of trying to tailor materials, trying to tailor learning paths and speeds to get the best benefit for each of the students. And to me, that's uh, something that needs to happen. I think we're finding out now that distance learning is fine, that you can learn very well not being in the classroom, having the person there. Okay, if we do that, then the next step away from that is then to expand to having lectures pre-done, having the instructors, already prepare the material, delivering that, and then delivering a variety of materials so that we can pick and choose from those and get the students on the right path. And so, to me, it offers a much more exciting way to teach and to instruct than just, hi there, I'm your instructor. You will listen to me. Okay.
I would hope that we all don't do that, but I'm
I
I've
know a couple that did,
no,
that,
it's true. It's
yeah,
true. They're and I think anybody who has spent some time in school, as most teachers of higher education do. And it's funny you were mentioning you're like I'm working on my next degree. I can't tell you the number of academics I know that are working on their next degree. It just seems to be a way of life, if you will. But
yeah,
the reality though is that I, having been a student and continue to do so, I have run into those faculty who on occasion will just be like, hey, I've got mine, you're working for yours, you got to put in your time. They're very unforgiving, and it does take away from, to your point, from the learning experience. It takes away from that ability to really kind of flourish in that environment. But at the same
yeah.
time, some of the things you're talking about are a little bit scary because, you know, when you say like, "Hey, you're one good algorithm away from being replaced," which is not a lie. I mean, it's the God's honest truth.
Yeah.
How do we respond to that? How do we prepare ourselves for a world where, um, quite honestly, here's the crazy paradigm. Right now, you and I are teaching people how to further advance in a career that may not be there by the time they think they would be ready to retire, because
Yeah.
things like artificial intelligence will change and maybe even eliminate the need for them doing the work that they're doing.
Well, what's this stat? You'll go through two or three career or professions during your lifetime of work that you will not be doing the same thing year after year. That
True.
you know what what you what you should be learning is how to learn and how to get to n- not not get to the new material, but to absorb the new material. If you are faced with changing something, how do you do that? How do you throw away the old stuff and put the new stuff in? And that takes some training to do it. But I think we need to be much more flexible in what we expect to do, and to not create an expectation of being in doing the same thing in whatever. And I will tell my students, look, the pace of information is such that by the time you graduate, 25, 30% of what you know is going to be obsolete. and within 2 or 3 years after that, the rest of it will be obsolete, and that you have to go be prepared to learn new things. Now, fortunately, I did also teach accounting, which doesn't change that much.
Right.
Thank goodness. But it's still changing a lot with the way things, are happening with the size of companies and all like that. So we need to turn education into a way of creating learners that when they graduate, they'll be able to learn from what they have, and to teach them not to get married to what they're doing. That's going to change, and that you just should be prepared for an a different type of work than you're used to.
No, that that's very true. And in fact, as you were starting out in saying that, one of the things I thought about was what my very first job when I worked at Coca Cola was
Mhm.
because I started like there was the guy who dumped the trash at the end of the day, and then there
Yeah,
was my job, which was just a hair above that.
yeah.
Um, but I started out as a very low level customer service rep, making $5.50 an hour on the telephone. And when I started that job, we didn't have laptops. I remember when PC, computers were first coming into the company, and only
Yeah.
managers could have a PC. And we didn't have email. We had this self-made mail program called like KO Mail, and all of our work, we would get our work, the people who we had to call on our customer service job, we would get a printout on this really big, wide green bar paper. And it would, just a dot matrix printer would print out the names and phone numbers of places we had to call. We'd write in pen or in pencil the notes on this piece of paper. And then at the end of the day, we'd file all of our notes in a filing cabinet at the end of the day. There was no automation at all. And we've gone from that to this which
Yeah.
is,
Your portable computer,
right.
very portable computer.
But
You know.
that job, the way that it was done, the whole operation, like we would send out service calls to technicians and we would fax them. Like nobody uses a fax anymore, except for maybe doctors' offices. But we would fax them, service calls. Like everything was done on a phone, on a pager, and on a fax machine, and none of that stuff exists in the volume that it did before. And
Right.
now all of that stuff, all of that whole transaction of things can all be done on an app through your phone. And
Right.
this is where we're going. So to your point of jobs evolve and they go away and technology changes and it evolves and you do and do, that is adaptability at its core right there.
Right. I said accounting doesn't change, and probably the precepts don't, but I started out with a 10 key adding machine and having to do everything on that adding machine. And of course, now we're doing into computer auditing, where we take a PC in and we get the materials and we download them and we massage them, and we can produce an audit that way, and we can produce financial reports that way. And if we really were pressed, we could use our phones to do it. And that's just, I show my students pictures of accountants with ledgers and writing things in pen and ink. And when we got, rid of the ledgers, we got rid of a lot of people that had to go change to do something else. So we've had these various revolutions along the way, and we're having another one. And this is what we're past machine age, past the information age. We're into the artificial intelligence age, if you want to call it that, the fifth revolution of how we do things and how we go about things.
Well, I
So
think
we've
though,
adapted, huh?
what I was going to say is I think though that this time it's very different though, because it used to be that technology would eliminate kind of lower skill jobs, things that were more repetitive and more manual labor oriented. And so,
Right.
there was we begrudgingly adopted it, but now we've got a tool that it does. I mean, and it's so amazing, and it comes in so many different forms. Everything from drones to customer service lines, where Google a little while ago demonstrated this technology, this AI voice technology that sounds and acts like a real person, and you can give this technology the task of phoning to make appointments for you, make reservations for you, and they actually you go online, you can find a demonstration of it. It sounds like a real person, and the person on the other side of the phone has no idea they're speaking to a machine, because the machine will even do ahs and ums and pause and think about things before it
Hmm.
responds to you. It's incredible. And you just think about, while we may argue about artificial technology taking away our jobs, we also participate in it willingly and happily. Things like
Yep.
DoorDash, things like, Starbucks ordering your coffee online and picking it up in the drive through. COVID has forced even more of that stuff to be implemented. Kiosks where you go ring up your own order. I've even seen it at Disney World and Disney, where you go into a restaurant and you scan the QR code and it brings up the menu on your phone, and then you just order on your phone, and you're taking that job away from people. And
Right.
it just seems like more and more we're doing these things, but where not everybody's going to learn to code. Like, there is
I know.
a skill to
It's
being a
always been
service
the
worker.
argument. Yeah, it's always been the argument that oh yeah, we're taking away the menial job, but we're creating better jobs to run the machines that do the menial jobs. Well, the way that AI is taking over is they're displacing more workers than are needed to run the AI. I mean, once you get the AI established, it doesn't take as much as the workers to replace it. So we're ending up with more and more people that are structurally unemployed, that their jobs just don't exist anymore, and they're not trained for anything. And so, to me, it ties in, and with your other topic, which is the minimum income. Why
Right.
shouldn't we, as a society, take care of those people? If we're going to produce all these wonderful goods and services and all using very advanced technology and displacing the people, then we need to provide a safety net for them. We can't just displace them and say, bye, thank you for your service. Uh, don't call us, we'll call you. That's we can't do that. The economy won't work if we do that. So we need to be able to um, have people earn something that will keep
Carry
them
them
going.
through.
Yeah.
Well,
So
uh, and so the question as we think about that is then, um who helps to support that? And
right.
yes, I think the taxpayer is going to have to support some of that, but so too um, are the companies that are developing this technology. And I mean, should there, and I'm not a big tax guy, right? I'm no Gavin Newsom when it comes to taxes. But one
Hmm.
of the things that one of the things that I think about is, realistically, these companies that are developing these technologies that are putting people out of work, does it make sense to maybe levy taxes against the implementation of this technology, similar to the way you have a licensing agreement every time you install something that's tied to Apple or Adobe or Microsoft, that there is some sort of tax along the way that helps to go into this pool, to start paying some people who are trying to shift because technology has put them out of work, or develop into avenues that will help them, earn a living. I mean, we can't just leave people without things to do.
Yeah, right. And we suffer a lot if people sit around idly. Just the human cost, the economic cost is terrible in that regard. What I think we need to do in several cases is to rethink, a deep rethink of what we're about. Our tax system is based on taxing income. Why do we have an income tax? Generates a lot of money. Okay. It's reasonably easy to administer, but very, it doesn't address issues very well, like this one. If you said to someone, you may earn this income, but as a consequence of earning income, you pay a licensing fee, as you're talking about, or you're going to do something to help these workers, and you're going to pay for that off revenues, or you're going to pay for it through something else, some charge, some fee. But I think we need to think, just clean sheet of paper almost. How do we want to make this work? If we're going to eliminate people, what's the best, our people's jobs? Keep the people. If we're going to eliminate people's jobs, how's the best way to help them at that point? You know, so we need the cash flowing out. So where do we get the cash coming in? What would be the best way to do it? And you're right. I think if you say, I'm going to use this technology that displaces 10 workers, you pay a fee of $15,000 per worker or something that can be used to supplement the income of those workers.
You
That
know,
gives them.
one of the we actually have a question here from the audience.
Ah,
So, one of the questions that we have asked is, UBI kind of feels like an unearth in the expanse, uh, tel- television show, that is on. But
mhm.
the question here, I brought up the wrong one, so sorry about that.
Oh,
So, do you think AI has dulled the minds of professionals when it comes to traditional skills like accounting, or other kind of higher function jobs where machines are kind of doing the heavy lifting for you?
do I think it's dulled their minds? Um, to some degree, it's taken away the routine, but in return, you've got so much to do and create, and so much to learn about how to operate whatever system that you're operating with. You mentioned algorithms, one good algorithm away from being unemployed. Well, who created that algorithm? What goes into creating it, you know, and who's going to keep up with it, et cetera. So on one hand, a little bit of dulling. On the other hand, there's an awful lot of brain work that's going to go into making AI work and keeping it working. It's just not going to require a lot of people, but it will require some brain work. For instance, uh, using AI in the audit process allows you to go through, and instead of a person looking at all these invoices, the system goes through and looks at all the invoices, compares them to an algorithm, and spits out the ones that need to be checked. Okay. So you have to set up what's it going to be looking for, and then it'll go look for them. Okay. Then you get the things out to go look and say what's what. Or you're looking at executive compensation, and you set up the algorithm who should be paid what, and are there any things that are different from that.
Are
So
you
I don't.
overlooking top talent, for example?
Yeah, and can we automate job performance then? and job evaluations that would give you a clearer picture of who's doing what rather than relying on the judgment of the supervisor who might be prejudiced one way or the other. And
Right.
so the AI takes the prejudice out as a more neutral finding. So you look at productivity rates, you look uh, at things that really indicate this the customer knows what they're doing, or the employee knows what they're doing, and use that as the criteria for deciding who gets the advancement and who doesn't. So,
You know, a question for you, since you do have uh, a better finance background than I do. so,
yes, maybe.
so, so, are you familiar with the Wilshire 5000 index?
Yeah.
So here's something that I'm a little curious about, and something I actually brought up on a show recently was so I'm noticing this index, which for those who may not have caught when I've mentioned this before, so the Wilshire 5000 index is an index of market capitalization in the United States against stock. I'm sorry, against the national gross domestic product of the United States. So the index is basically one of those things that you look at and you say, um, are the valuations of the companies in the United States outpacing our GDP? And one of the things that was kind of interesting in the index was you'll see like every time we've had a crash in the market, it's just seemingly also when we've gone above this index to like 1.4 or so. And right now
Mm.
we're hovering at around 1.8 above
Mm.
index. And I'm curious, why is this happening? Are we way overvaluing the stocks, or is it that our companies are becoming more valuable than the output of our nation? That to me just seems very odd.
It is very odd. Okay, a couple of things going on. The the market is intended to work on valuing the stocks on the basis of future earnings, future cash flows from the companies discounted to present value. If you look at like back Black Scholes and all the stock valuations, you'll see that they start with earnings and they project them out. And what are you going to get back in cash? What's the present value of that? Okay. And that's the logical basis. But to that, then you add the expectation, which is the the company is going to do better than they're doing right now.
Right.
Okay, you're
Which is why like Apple's at $2 trillion.
correct that Apple has, is going to produce more cash in the future because of its market position. So you may value in all the cash flows, but then you say, but there are other things that factor into this. Same thing with Amazon and Microsoft and some of the others that their future earning potential is not easily estimated through this process. That's one factor. The other factor is our old friend irrational exuberance. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, it seems like we've all been familiar with that over the last decade or so. We've gone through a few
Yeah.
corrections.
Yeah, and to me, the market is kind of rising above all the basic fundamentals right now. That
Yeah.
it continues to grow even though the economy tanked, and the we can see the economy tanking, and we see the reports that the economy is not going to recover for 2, 3, 4 years, but the market is acting like the the conditions we had in February continued on and were even better. And but we're not. And so the market is not done that. And I can only attribute it to irrational exuberance that we are betting on something we hope to happen that may or may not. And I think, the conditions require that we get a handle on COVID, that we get people back to work in a safe manner, and that will help. But then we've had structural changes in employment now,
Yeah.
very structural, that people are not going back to work. Well, that has all sorts of implications.
I mean, Disney
If
just
you,
laid off 20 some thousand people.
right.
And and this is by the way, so we're in October, and
Yeah.
if you watch the markets, typically we have October corrections.
Hmm.
We have a very inflated index of stocks against GDP. We have a lot of raw material, everything from steel to wood is
Yeah.
way higher in price these days, because of the slowdowns related to COVID. So there's a raw material challenges and shortages. Things are becoming more expensive for companies to make, yet the value of their company continues to rise. So I'm really puzzled as to how we're getting higher operations cost and more profitability.
Hmm.
But like these are all things that are happening, but for whatever reason the market is ignoring it all. And this kind of goes back to the whole thing about universal basic income, because okay, let's just pretend nothing's going to happen, and I'm not confident in that at all, but I think something around the corner is going to happen to the market. It's going to have a big correction. So uh, when we get there, when we finally get to the point where we think we're going, uh, what are we going to do to get folks back to work? If the machines, if you're a fan of Terminator, if Skynet is taking over,
Hmm.
how do you get people uh, to spending money? How do we keep infusing our economy with these kind of headwinds? I mean, that's, and I don't know that we'll solve this in this portion, but it is a big challenge.
Yeah, it is. Okay, the is it American and United announced furloughs,
Yes,
massive furloughs. Why? Well, travel is down. The casual traveler is not there. Business travel is also down because we don't need to travel as much to get our business done as we're discovering. And we have no foreign travel. So the airlines are hurting. But when the airlines are hurting, then all of the related services are hurting: hotels, restaurants, taxi cabs. The people that work at all those places are hurting.
and
Not just,
the feeder companies that feed into all of that, the catering companies, the food service companies, the janitorial services, the fuel, the tires, like there are huge supply chains that support all of these things that are changing, yet we got stocks going crazy.
and I know that's why I say it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, because the fundamentals are so wrong. And let's say the economy recovers and we've got a number of companies that are not going to bring their employees back. Well, that's going to depress real estate.
Right.
Commercial real estate ought to be tanking, because of the lack of demand for office space. We
Sure.
started with, the office towers so we could put people in close proximity to each other to conduct their business. Well, we don't do that. And the COVID shutdown and all is teaching us that we do not have to be as close as we thought to conduct business.
Right.
And then we don't need all of that space. So the space is, it's going to go away. And we also don't need to travel. So autos are impacted. Uh, Petroleum companies are impacted. People that make tires, all of these things are going to change because of this shift in how we're doing things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot going on in the next 5 years with all of these changes and adapting to them, including AI. I mean, it's just going to be major, major, major shifts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Morris, we are, can you believe it? Half hour goes so quickly. Um, and we are already just past the half hour.
Oh,
But I do want to say a big thank you for joining me and kind of exploring this topic, and a lot of really good questions raised. And as we do more of these things, because this is one of those where I love to get people who, like I said, are better at finance than I am, because they uh, when you've kind of this is your subject matter expertise, so you're well versed in it, and plus you also have the legal side as well. It's always nice to be able to pick up on that added information. But I also just want to give a plug to the online MBA program at Holy Names University, which is something that you chair. Before we break, is there anything real quick you want to say about that program?
well, we're making it exciting. We're updating with using more current faculty. We can get you an MBA degree in 1 year from your easy chair and make it current and make it applicable to what you're going to be doing. So, yeah, I think we have a great program, and we're thanks to faculty like you, it's very relevant and very timely, and we're working to make it even more timely.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I mean, Holy Names University. So the great thing about the online program is you don't have to go to campus. And right now, during these times, it's a little difficult to do that anyway. But if you've never seen Holy Names University, folks, you got to like go online and check it out. It is such a beautiful campus. It's up in the Oakland Hills. It overlooks the San Francisco Bay. You can see from the Bay Bridge all the way out to the Golden Gate. It's just an amazing campus, wonderful people, wonderful staff. Everybody there is just so amazingly friendly, and it's just such a really cool university and a good school. So, and Morse, you do a fantastic job with the MBA program. So,
Thank
uh,
you.
definitely looking forward to more students from there. Um,
Yeah,
all right, folks. Well, guys, thanks for joining. And I encourage you to check us out next week. So, next week, we have a really exciting show. We got a special guest, Mr. Binley Sangster and John Martinez from the J. Martinez and Company. We're going to be exploring a Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee, which is some of my favorite. In fact, I just put in my order today for some Sangster's Blue Mountain because we always do this. What are you drinking? So, I hope I get my Sangsters by Tuesday before the show. But Tuesday, we're going to be talking with Binley Sangster. And then on Thursday, we're going to be coming back with a topic about conversation and have we lost the art of conversation because we're so head down into our phones and we do more through text than anything else these days. So, how is that affecting the way that we communicate? So, I hope that you will join us again next week. Until then, I am Ben Olmos. My special guest today was Morris Ham, and we appreciate you guys checking us out. So look forward to seeing you next time, and have a good one.